Hey everyone, welcome and thank you for tuning in to Dept Commerce Day. My name is Tobias Cummins. I'm the Business Development Director at Dept in EMEA, and I'll be your host and MC for the day. Meaning, it's going to be my privilege to take you through the amazing program for the coming 2 hours. We will be joined by some brilliant speakers from Gucci, Inter Milan, eBay, Vogue Business, just to name a few. So I suppose the first question you might have is, why do a Commerce Day? Well, frankly, at Dept, we love to tackle current topics that we find particularly relevant in our industry and where we feel strongly we can actually add value for you, our clients, and our partners. And commerce is just such a topic because in commerce, data, tech, and creativity truly come together like nowhere else. In commerce, everything is measurable, and with that, there's an element of causality. Action and reaction, optimization and profitability. Because it's the place where the relationship between a brand and consumer is incredibly tangible and direct. And given that tangibility and direct link to revenue, it's no surprise then that commerce tends to be at the forefront of digital innovation, where new ideas flourish and cutting-edge tech emerges. It's so important, in fact, that many of the folks at Dept, including myself actually, work in commerce in some form, both on the marketing side as well as the tech side of the business. And as a result, we feel it's important we share those insights in an effort to hopefully pique inspiration and have a peek into the future of this field. So, in the next few hours, we have a wide range of interesting talks. Talks range from, actually first up we have Max to take us through the future of e-commerce. We have Anusha talking about sustainability. We have folks like Renata and Luca from eBay and Inter Milan, respectively, talking with me actually and Ali about social commerce and transforming online shopping experiences. We've got Maria from Vogue delivering on the promise of digital, and we finally have Oliver and Jan to take us through the road to metaverse commerce. So, actually, we have 3 stages. So the main stage is the stage that we're on now. We also have 2 other stages, who'll be hosted by Koen and Diana. Koen and Diana, are you there?
Hi, Tobias.
Yes, hello.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you. All right, well, your stages are coming a bit later today. For now, wish you the best and talk to you soon.
Thank you, enjoy stage
So
1.
before we begin, just a few important things on the desktop interface that you'll be actually interacting with this panel through. This is where you can find the timetable that we just ran through. And on the desktop, you'll also find 2 globe icons, if you can find those. And those are the globe icons will take you through to the 2 stages from Diana and Koen. There's also a live chat feature, so feel free to chat to us and all our attendees. And in that live chat feature, for example, at the end of the sessions, we can have a bit of a Q&A, so your questions can sort of come through in the channel. And last but not least, make sure to explore the desktop more broadly because we've got lots of Easter eggs in there in terms of content around the commerce topic. So I think, for now, let's maybe begin the show. And for our first talk, we'll be zooming out to a macro perspective and looking at the influences that we see happening in the world that will eventually impact commerce. And for that talk, we have our very own strategy director and colleague of mine, Max Pinas. Max, are you there by any chance?
Yeah, hey, Tobias, can you hear me?
Awesome. Look, Max, I can't wait for your chat. I'm going to step off, and the stage is yours, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. And you should tell me what hairdresser you have.
I can't actually hear you.
You can't hear me? Well, shall I just start?
One second, Max. Bear with me.
I will.
Bear with me, Max. I can see you. You look great. Here we go.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you perfectly, my friend. How are you?
Okay. I'm good. I was asking what hairdresser you have.
What hairdresser I have? Look, it's Clippers, Amsterdam. He's the best.
Okay, cool, man. Shall I start the show?
Please do. Can't wait.
Okay. Thank you, mate. So very cool that I am able to do this talk. I must say to the technical people in the back, I can hear myself double. So if you can do something about it, that would be perfect. I'm going to talk about the future of commerce, and the future of commerce is digital. And if you look at digital right now, it's radically transforming society and everything we know, right? I mean, just the fact that we're doing this in a virtual world says everything. But digital is not only transforming society, businesses, and people's behavior, it's also transforming commerce. And I would like to dive into that a little deeper. So the future of commerce to me is immersive, it's personalized, and it's really smart. So to give some examples, I will run through each one and just show stuff that's going on in the world. And it's up to us as an industry, Dept as an agency, but also you, the brands and the awesome shops that are out there to sort of make these things that are happening and put them in their own situation. So, for example, if we look into immersive, there's a lot of stuff going on. So before, a couple of years ago, actually, virtual influencers were quite on the rise, but then it fell down a bit. But right now, it's up again. And I think it's due to all the AI and the smart tools being used, and it's actually starting to make sense. People are online 24/7. So for businesses and brands, it starts to make more and more sense to use these. And they're not only sort of being made as prototypes or proof of concepts, it's actually becoming a certified craft. So something you as a team could get experience in or hire people that will do that for you. And if you put that a little bit further beyond the brand and look at the users and consumers, it's all about avatars. So, and avatars are in games, but they're also in metaverses. They're also in environments where you can engage with others. So, for example, you have a tool called Ready Player Me. When we organized Meta Festival, we also used Ready Player Me. And what was really impressive to me is what's on the screen right now. One avatar for many virtual worlds, meaning that in hundreds and hundreds of games, but also metaverses and places where you can connect and interact, you could roam around with one avatar, and that avatar is yours and yours only, and you would then be able to dress it up with clothes that you would buy, for example, as an NFT, or just select from the different venues you are in. Another thing, again, in this new domain of immersiveness is that AR is becoming more relevant than ever. We are more and more shopping at home, doing our stuff away from main shopping streets, meaning we want to see things. We want to have a vibe of how does this car look, or how do these sneakers fit. And something also a bit weird is happening. So a lot of these big names are now sort of reverse engineering tech towards stores. And we call that phygital, where physical and digital really meets. And for example, Amazon opened their own first fashion retail store. So who would have thought that? And for example, Nike has opened something called Nike Style. They already have two. Maybe they will open more, where sort of you see a green screen studio, you see digital screens, and that's really intermixed with physical experiences. And last example is COS, where they are from the H&M group. They are heavily experimenting in some of their flagship stores to bring virtual experiences into the physical domain. That's a really, Shopify was saying a while ago, like the future of retail is going to be retail everywhere. And I thought that's a kind of interesting statement. And then they are so set on making this happen. So for example, they have a partnership with Pinterest, with in-app purchases, or with Twitter, or with YouTube. So that really shows you like these traditional sort of siloed environments where you would only see images or videos or tweets now suddenly are intermixed with commerce. And that made massive, massive change for us in this industry and the brands that are in it. And if you look a bit further, these things are being integrated in more and more stuff as we speak. So for example, WhatsApp has grocery integrated in India. And of course, it's now maybe it's just one country, a really big one. But what would happen if these functions would pop up in the country you are at? So this is really showing how tech is becoming immersive in everything we do, but it's also becoming more personalized. And what I mean by that is the following. So video, for example, becomes top of mind because people want to see more things that shows how what belongs to them, that expresses their style, their personal brand. So suddenly they are thinking about these first 10 results in a different way. And that's dominantly due to Gen Z. They are reshaping social media, and specifically TikTok is so much on the rise. Almost everybody knows it right now. But a year ago, when I was talking about TikTok, everybody was like, yeah, but that's for kids. And you just see the speed of these things coming at us. And it's also sort of an existential crisis going on. Be Real, that's a new social media platform, again with the Gen Z. It gives you a push notification and you will take one picture of yourself wherever you are. So that's almost the opposite of the beautified version of yourself on Instagram. And Meta is trying, for example, to do a lot about their own social media, because people are not buying into everything anymore. They know so much, they see so much, so people are starting to raise the bar themselves. But having said that, the rest of the metaverse is really, really on the rise, and there are a lot of things going on. Standards are being set and new experiences are being built. And it really starts to spill over into mainstream. So if you look at search, 2,200% growth in 2022 year to date. MTV Video Music Awards had a category metaverse. And, you know, if even Biden is in there, you know, it's something mainstream. And that also means that for us as an industry and you as brands, we need to have different types of jobs, like quantitative developer of a metaverse consultant or an NFT expert. It's really interesting if you dive into that stuff. But also the regulations they worry about all the privacy infringements, all the security data breaches. And it starts to become really, really, really important that you as a brand are aware of these developments, because the platforms, they need to change stuff, and that will impact us as an industry as well. Small video.
The next sale is a digital treasure trove charming Ellie's private data.
What?
Lot number one, her emails. The one she's opened and read, wonderfully personal.
It's a clip from Apple, and yeah, they're trying to spearhead this movement of better security and privacy. And yeah, we're all in it. We're going to first-party data. And we need to get used to that. And I think it's really important that we start working on that straight away. But it's not all about these things like data and security. It's also about the planet and taking care of it. And for example, this is the founder of Patagonia, and quite recently he gave away his company to a foundation, and all the profits from now on, projected 100 million a year, will go to the planet and taking a better care of it. So that's just insane how brands are changing, and you just see it and know it yourself as well. Like, hey, you wear Patagonia proud nowadays. So my last part is about being smart. So business models are being reimagined. Think about like a flash delivery, like the Uber Eats. It's expanding what they do and the services they have day by day. And you see it with takeaway, you see it by a lot of these services. They are just changing their business models, and we'll see it across the board. And it also means for brands and businesses in e-commerce that are just multiple touch points and way to do business. But also be smart about like new technology, like AI. By typing text, you can generate images like this. And we ourselves as Dept, we experimented a bit with this a lot. And for example, this was our Dept Fest, and we are using images like this, opposed to real imagery. We are just using AI to show and energize and inform our own employees. Do you remember Microsoft Clip Art? I mean, come on. Some of you, they stopped doing it, but this was Microsoft Clip Art. But Microsoft is going to do something new, Microsoft Designer, where it's sort of a clip art, but then in the Web3 version, where you can just type anything you like and it will create automatically in PowerPoint or in Word or whatever you have, this imagery. Just imagine if this tech becomes really good, it means that maybe for whole product lines and categories, we will use only AI to generate the images, no more photo shoots or whatever. And TikTok is already experimenting with this, with a crude version where you can just make stories by typing text, and it will visualize what you're typing about. So this was the end of my story. And I think, again, the future of commerce, it will be immersive, it will be personalized, and it will be smart. I just shown you a couple of glimpses, and if I had more time, I could do this for hours. So I hope that we together will be on this journey, and together we'll make some awesome and cool stuff. Thank you.
Max, thank you so much for that incredibly interesting stuff. And always a pleasure to hear from you. Always inspiring as usual. Hope you have a great day, mate.
Thank you. And you have a good show. And I hope commerce will be more pretty after today.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so. I've got hope.
Okay. Bye.
Take care. All righty. Thank you so much again, Max. What an amazing talk. In the interest of time, let's move on to our next speaker of today, Anousha. So as an introduction, Anousha is head of advisory at Vogue Business, where she leads data, insights, and bespoke consumer research projects for brands and businesses. And Anousha will be telling us more about a very important topic, namely sustainability, which Max also talked about briefly as well. I don't think I need to emphasize the importance of this topic, given the urgency of climate change and planet preservation, but it's also something dear to us at Dept, given our commitments to impact, and given our B Corp status. So let's get to Anousha's talk titled The Green Ceiling, Breaking Down Barriers for the Sustainable Shopper. Anousha, are you there?
Hi, Tobias. Yes, I'm here. Love to be joining you today.
Amazing. Anousha, how are you? You good?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. I'm dopamine dressing a little bit for this event because it's such a grim, grisly day here in London.
Look, we appreciate it. Anything that brings some color into this talk, I appreciate it. Bring it on. Well, look, I hope you have a great talk. I'm really looking forward to it myself, and we can maybe have a chat afterwards, okay?
Yeah, great. Look forward to it.
All right, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anousha Kutian, and I'm the head of advisory at Vogue Business, we provide industry insights and reporting to professionals with an interest in the fashion and luxury industry. And I personally lead all of our research and strategy and bespoke custom projects for brands and businesses with an interest in our sector. As Tobias mentioned today, I'm going to be talking to you about the green ceiling and how we can be breaking down barriers for the sustainable shopper. And I just wanted to start with why this might matter in the context of the luxury space. If we think about some of the brands that have in recent years achieved more of a cult status or a cult following, so brands like Loewe or Maison Margiela or Alexander Wang, then there are certain attributes that we can see in our research are driving that interest. So we do something called the Vogue Business Index that we produce twice a year, and it's our authoritative ranking of the top 60 global luxury brands around the world. And as part of this, we do a huge piece of consumer research. And in the latest edition, we surveyed over 5,500 consumers. And as part of that, we asked them to rate brands for a number of different attributes. And so when we look at these brands that have achieved that cult status, we can see that they index over average for certain values and attributes. And some of those include things that you would expect to see from luxury brands or high-end fashion brands, like offering innovative design or having an interesting brand story. But some of the other things that we can see that are bubbling up in those values that make them more appreciated by consumers is making them feel more connected to those in the know about fashion, and also offering products that are sustainable and ethically sourced. So if we think about what consumers are doing in the journey that they're going on when they're trying to shop more sustainably, we can see in our most recent piece of consumer research that 65% of global consumers try to get informed about whether or not the luxury brand that they're buying is socially responsible. Nearly 70%, so 69%, say that knowing a luxury brand cares about sustainability can make a difference in whether or not they choose that brand. And if given a choice between a luxury product or brand that is sustainable and a luxury product or brand that isn't, 71% say that for the same product, they would choose a luxury brand that supports sustainability rather than a brand that does not. So the sentiment and the motivation for consumers to shop more sustainably is there. And they're also willing to do that research. But what we need to do as an industry is make that information more accessible for consumers and more digestible for them too. Now, this is a challenge in and of itself, because if we think about the ways in which we communicate to consumers, there are different levels of trust that consumers will put into different types of media. So we were quite surprised to find that although social media is a primary gateway in which consumers discover brands and discover products, actually they don't trust it as a platform for important information as much as they might trust legacy media like magazines or newspapers. And this is especially true of consumers in the West. So this trend of trusting legacy media for information more than what people read on social media is especially true for European markets, particularly in the UK, which is ahead of the curve, but it's true for Italy, Germany, Spain as well. In fact, the only markets where we can see this trend inverted is China, and just tipping that point is Japan. And that's something that we're going to be keeping an eye on as we progress with this study. But what it means for us is that if we are trying to communicate information that is key to decision making and conversion, not just discovery, then we actually have to have that information positioned in the right channels. And one of the ways that brands can do that is to use their own real estate and their own websites more effectively. Now, a lot of brands already communicate the progress that they're making towards sustainability and the policies that they're implementing through corporate channels. So they may have CSR sites or press releases or industry announcements and events that they use to communicate that information. But the way that information is communicated to the consumer really can do with improvement across the industry. When we look at how brands are communicating that type of information on their product pages, only 15% of those brands that we researched exhaustively in the Vogue Business Index are actually putting that information on product pages on their e-commerce sites. Primarily, but nearly 40% of brands don't have that information anywhere on their e-commerce sites. Nearly the same percentage, so 38% of brands put that information into their footer on their website. And this kind of makes the information more hidden and harder to discover in the consumer journey. Only 8% put it in their primary navigation, and 8% put it in the About section as part of that taxonomy. So there is work that we need to do to just make that information more readily accessible, but also available at the point at which a consumer is trying to make a decision about whether or not to buy that product. And one of the things that we're trying to advocate more for is to have more of that information available at that point of purchase, so that the customer has all of the information that they need to make that decision when they're ready to hit buy. Another thing that we need to consider as an industry is how we elevate services as part of the sustainability journey for consumers. There are a number of challenges that consumers are engaging with as they try to make the right decisions about which brands they want to buy, but also the right products to buy as well. And anyone who's worked in retail or in fashion for a long time will know that although sustainability is becoming more important as a priority for shoppers, those elements of convenience or price or quality are still really important drivers, and we don't abandon them in order to progress with sustainability. We need to do it in partnership with those elements as well. So elevating things like services as part of that sustainability toolkit is something that will help, particularly in the luxury end of the market, because consumers already expect a high level of customer service in that segment. Again, looking at the number of brands that are offering repair services in the Vogue Business Index, 37%, so over a third, welcome repairs, but over 40% don't advertise a service at all. And this is something that brands not only need to consider as part of their service offering, but it actually affects their supply chain as well. So if you're a brand that's thinking of introducing more sustainability services, particularly elements like repairs, then you actually have to consider whether or not your product is made to be repairable in the first place. And this means that sustainability can't be treated as a silo that one team is responsible for within your business. It means that that team has to talk to the supply chain management team. It means that team also has to talk to the marketing team about how that's being communicated both internally and externally. And so really sustainability has to run throughout the infrastructure of a business for it to be meeting all of the various demands that customers have. And we can't always start at 100%. Brands do not become sustainable brands overnight, but there are steps that brands can take towards that. And there are a couple of different examples that I just wanted to share with you that have really excited me in recent times. I think collaboration and partnership is one of the ways in which we succeed together in this industry and actually fuel innovation and progress in sustainability faster. So one example of this is Prada's Miu Miu doubling down on upcycling projects in collaboration with Levi's. I think it's a really exciting partnership because you see the combination of a high-end fashion brand with a middle market fashion brand, both of them with their own kind of cult following, but upcycling products to bring newness and novelty into the industry in an exciting and sustainable way. At Bottega Veneta, they've recently announced that they're going to be re-releasing handbags from their archives and introducing lifetime warranty for repairs across their products as well. And again, that's an initial step, but that's something that will come to affect more and more of their product over time. Another example is Burberry offering trench coat refreshment to reproof for water resistance using biodegradable and non-toxic products. Again, making those products more durable, focusing on their heritage products that everyone knows first, but thinking about how the quality of the products in the first place lend themselves to being repaired and being used over and over again, and abandoning the idea of planned obsolescence that has often permeated throughout the fashion industry. If we look at a brand that has actually elevated this into more towards the 100% of product, then I think Longchamp is a really good example. And I'm a really big fan of this initiative from Longchamp, which is basically enabling shoppers to customize their signature Le Pliage handbag, but also introducing more and more sustainability throughout their supply chain as well. So for these handbags, the canvas is made from 100% recycled polyester, and that's derived from plastic that's extracted from waste. You can go onto their site, and there are loads of different elements that customers can personalize, from the body of the product to the trimming, embroidery of initials, stamping, and adding tassels and embellishments as well. It's a really interactive experience. It's an experience that brings delight to the shopper, but they also have the reassurance that no matter what they do with this product, or no matter which variation they purchase, they're going to have those elements of sustainability. And Longchamp has committed that by the end of next year, all of the canvas that they use will be made from recycled fibers. And they already use recycled polyamide, polyester, linen, and cotton. Now, Longchamp is obviously further ahead in their journey towards creating 100% sustainable products than some brands. But the implication means that they're removing the mental labor that consumers have to perform to figure out what proportion of Longchamp products are going to be sustainable and what proportion isn't, because by the time they achieve that goal, shoppers will be reassured that no matter what they buy from the brand, they're going to be shopping in a more sustainable way. And that's what we mean by removing barriers for the consumer. It's about reducing the amount of work that they have to do to figure out how they're going to make the right decision about their purchases. So I just want to leave you with a few key recommendations. One is to continue working on how we communicate with shoppers through the most trusted channels. What do you have in your communications portfolio currently? And which of those channels are actually going to land the right information at the right time for the consumer? The second one is about thinking of the role that new categories can play in this, and how we can introduce newness more frequently to reach frequent shoppers. As retailers and as brands, we still have a responsibility to sell things and to delight the consumer, to build retention, to build loyalty and repeat purchases. But that doesn't need to be mutually exclusive of sustainability. We can use sustainable initiatives to achieve those goals too. The third thing is that the more information we provide to shoppers at the point of sale, the more confidence they will have in the product and the brand that they're purchasing. And as I mentioned, attaining 100% sustainability doesn't happen overnight, but we should be prepared to communicate the progress that we're making towards achieving those goals to the consumer, not just to the industry. It's fine to say that you haven't done everything yet. I think actually it would be remiss of us to say we've solved sustainability anytime soon, but consumers really welcome that transparency, and they like to see the effort that brands are making and the steps that they're taking. And finally, disclosure is key. Just make it easy for consumers to discover that information as part of their shopping journey. I would also say that although we focus on the environmental elements today, don't neglect other values like diversity and inclusion and social impact. Those elements are just as important to consumers, that are continuously being built into that framework of ESG. And actually, we can see that in the way that consumers are behaving, they kind of expect progress against environmental goals as table stakes, and actually social impact and the ways that brands help people are starting to be elevated in that prioritization. And then treat sustainability services as an extension of customer service, because it can help to drive that loyalty and retention. That brings me to the end of my talk today for Dept Commerce Day. And I'm happy to take any questions that might have come in, Tobias.
Amazing. Anusha, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom. I actually do have a couple questions for you. The first one, a question from our audience. I like this one. This one is quite nice. When asked, many would say, of course, I care about sustainability, and I think many do. But fashion is also quite emotional. What if you just love that amazing design of a not so sustainable brand? Is the question, I suppose. How should one temper those emotions when trying to make a purchase decision, I suppose?
You know, I think that's such an interesting question because it seems that if you love something that you don't believe is necessarily sustainable, that you can't have it. What I like to talk about is delayed gratification. So we talk about instant gratification and how consumers expect that in the highly digital world that we live in. I primarily purchase my fashion items through resale and secondhand shops and charity shops. Now, granted, if everyone shopped the way that I did, then I would probably not have a job. But there are more and more resale options becoming available to the consumer. And, you know, very often I'll see something in a shop and I'll be tempted to buy it, but I will resist that temptation. And I cannot tell you the number of times I've seen that garment that I admired or loved hanging in a shop window come up on eBay or come up on Depop a couple of years after it's gone out of season. Now, if you're a particularly trend-led individual, then maybe that won't work for you. But for me, I don't personally mind too much about keeping up with the trends. I'm happy to delay that gratification and see that product have a longer lifespan and be loved by more than one person. And I actually get more of a sense of satisfaction from buying it through a resale avenue. And I think the same that can be said for things that are currently in season, actually. We've done a lot of research at Vogue Business on the resale market. And actually, it's surprising the number of products that people can find through resale channels, but also the role that resale plays in helping people to access things that have gone out of stock in stores. And you can actually still find quite a lot of inventory through those resale channels. You know, sometimes somebody's been given a gift that they don't want, or it's been in the wrong size. And you just need to do a little bit more research. And I think there's an opportunity for brands to partner more with those technology platforms that power resale in order to make that a more viable channel for consumers too.
Yeah, lovely. Couldn't agree more. I had actually a question for myself. I remember in your talk you mentioned you have your sort of primary navigation, and you mentioned only 8% of brands sort of emphasize their sustainability efforts in the primary navigation piece of their digital presences. I was curious. So my question is, you mentioned sort of also at the end of your talk, it doesn't matter, like transparency is important. So showcasing perhaps you're not fully the way there, but I get the sense perhaps that brands don't want to emphasize their sustainability efforts if they're not quite where they want to be yet. And I guess, you know, is it the case that, how do you feel we should help those brands to prioritize it over time, I suppose?
You know, I actually get this a lot. I get asked this a lot, Tobias, especially when I go and talk to some of the brands that we evaluate in the index, and they haven't been scored as highly as they'd like to when it comes to sustainability or ESG. And they say, but we're doing these things, we just don't talk about them.
Right.
And my response would be that it plays a really big role in how a consumer perceives you. And actually, there are a number of brands out there that do communicate that progress, that are transparent when they haven't achieved 100% of what they want to achieve. But as I said, consumers welcome that honesty and that authenticity. So if I think about brands like Reformation or Pangaea, they're really good examples of brands that communicate in that way. I mean, Reformation had a really cool campaign, I think it was on its swimwear line, not too long ago, where they said this is not a sustainable product. And they spoke about the process that they went into trying to develop a textile that was appropriate to the garment and waterproof, etc. But it didn't have all of the qualities of sustainability that they wanted because the textile didn't exist yet. And so actually it became a really good storytelling exercise between Reformation and their customers to say, this is the journey that we are going on as an organization to try and be more sustainable. We're not there yet, but this is the product that we've created, and hopefully we will continue to improve. And I think in the culture that we live in now, people do welcome that honesty, and there's room for being a little bit vulnerable and taking some more risks in that space.
Yeah, fair enough. You can't just flip the script 180 degrees from today to tomorrow, right? And I think that's completely appreciated. Anusha, thank you again for sharing your time and your wisdom with us. I hope you have a brilliant day, and hope to speak to you soon.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Tobias. Good luck with the rest of the sessions. It's a really exciting agenda. And can I just say, I really love the design of the platform, the retro digital platform that you guys have created for the event today. It's really cool.
We love it too. Thank you, Anusha.
Thank you so much. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care. All right. So up next, we've got our panel actually that I'll be hosting. But before we get started with that panel, I wanted to announce that, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have 2 more stages, hosted by Koen and Diana, as I mentioned to you in the beginning. They're actually now ready for you. So if you check the timetable on the desktop for all the details, and also just as a reminder, you can now join the Growth in Commerce and Next in Commerce stages by simply clicking on one of the 2 globes on the desktop that you might be engaging with us through. So, on to the panel. And I imagine that some folks are joining as we go along. So just to reintroduce myself, I'm Tobias. I'm the Business Development Director at Dept. And next up, we have our panel, namely titled How Social Commerce is Transforming Online Shopping Experiences, where we'll dive into the impact of this relatively new technology on driving revenue online. And joining me, we have Renata from eBay and Luca from Inter Milan, as well as our very own Ali from Byte Dept. Hey folks, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Amazing. All right. Well, look, so for context for you folks at home, Renata, Luca, Ali, and we had some chats over the course of the coming couple of weeks. I'm personally super excited about this panel. And Luca, we're going to actually start with you, if that's okay with you, to kick things off. Is that all right?
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
Thanks.
So, for context for you folks at home, Luca is the CRO at Inter Milan. And I think what I would love to do as a starting point is to take us under the hood of Inter Milan, Luca. And of course, as a football club, you're in the business of winning football matches and inspiring fans. But for the purposes of this conversation, what I'm hoping to do is look into another aspect of the club. And that's how you generate revenue and how that's changed with technology. So, the question, could you give us some background of the company's recent moves into e-commerce and how that ladders up to your views on your overall business strategy? Luca.
Hi, Tobias, and hello everyone. So first of all, a pleasure, and apologize for my voice because it was a long night. Last night we came back very late from Barcelona, and as you say, at the end of the day, we try to make revenues in different way, but we're a football team. So the passion and the emotion of last night was quite big. So the night was very long. So back to your question. So I just want to step back just to give a context for the audience that is here today. Sport industries face, like every other industries, changes in the last couple of years, pandemic, war, other issues combined to a different way to consume sport, different way to watch sport on TV or on different devices. This change pushed us and the full industry to reconsider also our strategy in terms of revenue, reconsider how we can grow in terms of revenue. Because in the sport industry and football industry, revenue are usually, the big pots are coming from selling tickets, the rights, and of course the trade of players. But the Gen Z, the new generation, push us really a lot to think about a different way to engage, a different way to sell something, be a audio, a video, or merchandise, because the consumer sport is totally different. And of course, the digital assets that you mentioned before, they increase attention, and they are exactly the elements that we consider in our journey, that digital assets guarantee us the growth of a football team or any other sport company right now. So for us, we started this change a couple of years ago. As you mentioned, early July, we unveiled our new digital ecosystem, because I like to talk about ecosystem. That's extremely important. If you want to engage, if you want to maximize the fans, the number of people that follow you every single day, people that are watching content in our social media. We need to create some ecosystem that everything is linked. So our ecosystem is the web and the app that we recreate a new experience, especially give opportunity to utilize our quantity. So watch our images, watch behind the scene, watch what the team is doing every single day. On the other hand, we also unveiled for the first time our own e-commerce linked on that, where we want to offer seamlessly, a new platform that people can go from our web, watch content, go on our InterTV channels, go on the merchandise or e-commerce, buy merchandise, find a specific collaboration or specific products, then maybe go back again on the app, and then buy the tickets and come watch the game. So that for us is the digital asset. I will finish your question. Digital assets are important to unlock potential to our wider community, and then it's extremely important for us. So I like to talk, we always talk internally, like it's our journey, in the journey of digital ecosystem as a football club.
Amazing. Luca, you're right to start with the fact that your voice might be a bit lost. The fact that you're still here sitting with us is a surprise to me, to be honest with you. I feel like I need to thank you even more in light of last night. But
oh, it's a pleasure. That's it probably was extremely harder to come here after lose 6-0. So.
Yeah. Fair enough. Look, I'll take those odds. Renata, welcome and thanks so much for joining us as well. So for folks at home, Renata is one of the amazing folks that works in the marketing team at eBay. And Renata, I have an interesting question for you. Could you give us an impression of the secret sauce that underpins the commercial success of eBay?
Yes. Hi, Tobias. So simply put, I think for eBay, like if we narrow it down, it's really our buyers and sellers. We have this incredible community of like over 138 million active users. A lot of them are from these great, passionate, enthusiast communities, watch collectors, sneakerheads, motorheads, and so on, that are really chasing their own opportunity. And I would also say that eBay is so closely tied to culture, because we've been around over 25 years, just a great cultural barometer for, what's new and what's happening with consumer behavior. I think like one of the examples top of mind is Queen's Gambit came out on Netflix. Like we saw like a surge searches for chess sets and such. And similarly, for watches, for anyone who's a watch collector, Omega released a Moons watch, and like they had teased it out on Instagram, on social. So 3 days before the launch, like we saw a surge of 2,000% on searches just on eBay alone. So it's so great that a lot of buyers know essentially go to eBay to really look for like what's new and what's upcoming in terms of product releases. And in addition to that, I would say also it's really like our depth of inventory. You can really find everything and anything on eBay. I've connected with so many people that have found unique on there as well. One seller comes to mind, Reichbach, who is a seller at Time Titans on eBay, who found this really unique vintage watch. It was a Wells Row watch on eBay that his journey started there, buying that watch, and after years, he acquired the IP of that watch brand and essentially relaunched the brand. So it's just super incredible connection that people can have to items on there.
Awesome. I guess you can also get some Inter Milan jerseys on eBay too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think something that you both touched on to some degree is that I think for both Inter Milan and eBay, I think it's safe to say that community is one of the key ingredients to either your club or platform success. And on that topic, I want to dive in a bit more into the aspect of community. So Renata, can you give us an impression of how you view community and how you seek to translate community into commercial success?
Yeah, so I think for us, as I mentioned, like eBay's investing heavily in these verticalized businesses, and really wants to be part of these communities that drive so much authenticity in our content. And I think particularly part of, for our social team on eBay, we are part of those communities we're often marketing to. So I think of like my counterparts, Ryan, who's a sneakerhead, or Jonathan, who's a motorhead, and we show up at our community events. We've gone to SneakerCon, particularly one person on my team, J.R. Weidman, he's a community manager, and he co-creates content with people at these events, like ComplexCon and such. And even so, in like luxury categories, eBay will be a founding partner at the ReLuxury Summit in Geneva. So we've really invested heavily in not just connecting with, but being part of communities. And also, I'd say that we create content for these communities, particularly for watches. Our social team has created this content series called Sellers Club, where our sellers telling stories about not only their own collections as collectors, but also like showing the passion, that expertise they have as sellers. And this content was made by my team because we are watch enthusiasts, we're collectors ourselves, and it's I think what we weren't seeing in the market ourselves. And I just think that we're positioned to do this authentically because eBay, we really support our sellers and we help them build their own brands with that marketing, comms, and social support that I think sets us apart from other platforms.
Amazing. And Ali, I think you also recently started to work with the eBay folks in the UK, right?
Yes, we did, yeah. And actually, it's really interesting to hear the seller stories because that's one of the key things which we're trying to bring to the fore, because that's, to your point of like the special sauce, like those are the stories which really resonate with consumers and I think set eBay apart. So the ability to surface those stories in a way that people find interesting is, I think, what the mission we're on, and I think what sets eBay apart compared to competitors.
I love the fact that a London bus just drove by in the background of your alley. All right, Luca, I actually wanted to ask you a similar question. What are your thoughts with respect to community and the importance of community in Inter Milan? I think it's quite clear. Actually, I mentioned this to you before, but one of my best friends in Barbados, like in the Caribbean, is an avid Inter Milan fan. But yeah, how do you view the aspect of community and connecting that to commerce with respect to Inter Milan and the business that you're in? Sorry, Luca, you're on mute if you're speaking.
Sorry, I think Renata said the right words: authenticity. For a football club, this is probably the most important thing. You need to be authentic. You need to be, linked to your tradition. The values of the club are the most important things. I need to be very careful to touch when I produce, a new jersey or when I create a new song for the stadium. So the passion and emotion that the football club creates is our core business. So if you think about community, I'll give you an example. Like a couple of years ago, the owner of this club changed our logo because to project the club in the future. And at the beginning, I say, no, I'm not doing that because touch the logo of a club is just change the value, change the identity for my community that are all my fans. At the end, we're working on that, but we create something that was an evolution because you need to be extremely meaningful since your beginning. So Inter is by name is international. So that's what we want to talk about it. And then to transform the value international, and in fact we are from Milan. When we redesign our proposition, commercial proposition, we want to create an experience that is just much more than football. So when you come to our e-commerce, when you come to our apps, you can see also the contamination that we are doing with other brands. For example, Moncler. You can see why Inter and Moncler, because they're both from Milan. They're both interesting to create something unique for the audience that love Milan, the audience that love some specific values or fashion in the city of Milan. Then you can see and can buy and can experience in our e-commerce right now. So that was, for example, for us, the reason why we decided to change and transform completely all our digital touch points, because we try to make our global audience closer than ever to us, because that's the important thing. Like I can offer experience with the Milanese fans. They come to the stadium because they're based in Milan. But I have millions of fans based in Indonesia, in Brazil, your friends, in the Caribbean area. So I need to offer something different. And of course, like what we said before, the digital asset to create specific content, to create specific products to sell, is working extremely well. Digital elements help us to be connected widely and in a quick way.
Amazing. Well, look, I think based on the two topics that we just tackled, sort of overall business strategy, the secret sauces that underpin your club and the platform, and then of course the aspect of community that's so sort of ingrained into your brands. I think what I'd like to tackle next is social and commerce coming together into this new proposition and the tech associated with it, because I think it really brings together those two aspects very clearly. And Ali, I think, so now that you're here, being the MD at Byte, I think you deal with this topic every day with all the brands that come to us for advice. And my question to you is, could you explain how you've seen the rise of social commerce influence brands' digital strategies? And firstly, what is it? And has it changed that aspect, this whole sort of transactional nature of commerce online?
Yeah. I think we had Web 2 and now we're having Web 3. And I almost think we had social and now we're moving into a different space, which I'm super excited about, because I think initially when social came onto the scene, it broke down the barriers between brands and consumers, and it enabled us to have this like two-way conversation, which was like so exciting for brands. But if we were being really honest with ourselves, the digital tools lagged behind from a commerce perspective. They were very separate and siloed. And I think that's changing, which is really exciting. And brands on the forefront are, I think, Luca's point, bringing together the different ecosystems so they work together rather than being separate. And to Renata's point, like surfacing the authentic stories that consumers want to know that make you different as a brand and bringing those things together. So, I mean, we've always been social. We like look for inspiration in other people. That is what social does. Social media or digital media does. It enables you to be inspired by other people outside of your network. The next step, and what brands are doing now, is actually enabling us to shop that inspiration, or understand how we might be able to bring to life more of that kind of seeing what we want and then being able to actually go and have an action off the back of that. So yeah, I'm really excited by it, and I think lots of brands are already starting to like move very quickly into this space, and that's being enabled by the different platforms bringing new ad formats or like tracking and all of that kind of hyping, which is really important to be able to like prove really to our brands that it's working, and social commerce is really important for the future of brands and commerce.
Amazing. I think that's super clear and gives me a very good idea. And I guess my sort of seeing that from the agency side or the consumer side and the industry side, I'm curious to know, Luca, from your vantage point, when you have a new technology, in this instance, social commerce, do you think it fundamentally changes your view of strategy, or do you think it simply accentuates what you've been doing to date already?
I think it's helping us to get wider. We think that we are sport, we are football, but we want also to be relevant in the cultural land. So the digital asset helps us to inspire more people, utilize other brands, to go to social media, for example, or to sell something together in an area that are not linked to my core business, that is football. I give you a quick example. What we're gonna do on next Monday, actually, 3 days, we did a collaboration with the brand Bradley. If you're aware of that, but Bradley is probably one of the most brands that produce a surfboard. And with them, we have an authentic connection because one of the best surfer in Italy is Interfan. So with him and them, we develop a product, a small capsule that is going to give us opportunity to create new traffic on our e-commerce, their e-commerce. But the most important thing is to give a new experience, great content, specific content that people are going to see on our social media, and then it's going to see also in the broader social media. So two words got together, and this thing is for me is the opportunity for a football team to grow and go in the future. Decontaminated from some other sport enthusiasts. They are not football enthusiasts, but they are sport enthusiasts. For us, it's important, and then also as an aspect in terms of monetization, because we create a small capsule of product, we create a circle with their logo. So then you can see my logo in a different environment that transmit some value. They are representing my team, but with different notes. So I think it's important that the digital asset accelerates the opportunity to do those kind of contamination.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much for that, Luca. Renata, I have a sort of similar, well, not similar, a question that's associated with also the rise of social commerce for you, because at eBay, it's an interesting thing, right? Because as a platform, you also buy and sell. And I'm curious to know if you've had to pivot strategy with the rise of social commerce, where folks needn't leave the familiarity of their social platforms, where they also share content. But do you feel there's room for both, essentially?
Yeah, I do. I think, as I mentioned, like social and culture inform of a lot of our on-site activities. So it's very synergist for us. And I think we go where our customers are, right? So we've embraced a lot of social commerce in many ways. We've launched a lot of vertical handles. So in motors and collectibles, trading cards, sneakers, watches, to really support those businesses on our core accounts. I think we were one of the first, if not the first, major brand to launch like a TikTok commerce campaign. And in terms of our luxury categories, we created a lot of Gen Z focused on social content and series, and created that opportunity to address the Gen Z audience, which I think distinguishes us from other platforms. And at that point, we're also connecting with our consumers where they are with, experimenting with live commerce. We've done that and with creating cards to buy and sell and interact, with our customers, the hosted video form, or those video stream, I should say. And I know it's a relatively new format that we're using to really test and learn and optimize that user experience ahead of that, the trend that's coming more to the West. So.
Fair enough. I feel like I'm sleeping on eBay. I got some Pokemon cards at home that I'm sure I could dig up that I feel could be worth something. I'm going to go look into that. All right. I think, again, for you, I want to sort of talk a little bit about, the world that you're in. You're currently in the space. You're working for eBay, obviously. And curious to sort of get a sense of your future outlook. And I think it's safe to say that, we talked a lot about it today, right? We talked about sustainability. We talked about buyers and sellers and how communities are so important. I feel like eBay is quite uniquely positioned to sort of bring together all those things. Of course, you have a huge second-hand market there, and you're harnessing sort of like the pulling together of those two worlds, namely community and commerce. I'm curious though, like, where do you see things going from here for eBay? What are some of the things that you're focusing on with your team, for example?
Yeah, so in general, I think we're continuing to expand support of these focus categories and just grow our existing audience and engage communities, especially Gen Z, who are seeing, especially embrace the pre-owned luxury market and sustainability in a really big way. And then as a social team, we're continuing to expand and test new formats and omni-channel in just meaningful ways, like these, real in-person events, as I mentioned, Discord, AR, live shopping, and more. And we just have a lot more in store for 2023. I'm super excited.
That's awesome. I think, Luca, I have a similar question for you. What's next besides sort of taking home the championships, obviously? Tell me, Luca, what's next for Inter Milan?
That's very important. If we win some trophy, that's the most important.
I'm sure.
But apart of that, I think the next step, I said at the beginning, we are in a journey, so we just started. And for me, it's to create a new way of revenue. And I think I want to give a new experience online and to utilize the passion of Inter through digital arts. To give you an example, like NFTs, Metaverso, there are two elements that we want to combine inside our digital platform. And that is like something that we are working right now. So you can imagine, we can improve our merchandise, we can develop collaboration with some designer. But then we want to give opportunity to buy something physical, but also something digital, like an NFTs. Everything through our e-commerce, everything through our platform. So that's what we are doing right now.
Awesome. Sounds incredibly exciting. You know what? I just came up just as you were talking. Both of you mentioned it in some varying guise. The focus on Gen Z, and I guess my question to both of you maybe is, how is that? Is that simply like everyone's going, okay, this is for obvious reasons the future generation, of course, of shoppers and fans for that matter. I'm curious to know like how that's impacted your conversations and your focus as marketing and revenue leaders in the business. And maybe Renata, you could start with yourself with that question. Has it shaped it a lot, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely made us have a different lens on some of the communications and marketing that we do. And it's definitely proposed a new challenge, but I think we've definitely embraced that challenge, especially with a lot of our content and creator investment in TikTok. And it's been super exciting to essentially create a whole new meaning to what eBay is for like a new generation of shoppers. But as I mentioned, like we've seen that, for example, that we've seen like 34% of respondents in like a study, named sustainability for Gen Z as a major reason of engaging with commerce, right? So we are seeing them really increase the attitude around sustainability, and eBay being the perfect platform for that. So it's very much intuitive and makes sense, and it's been an exciting challenge to tackle.
Awesome. I think Anusha, one of our previous speakers who focused on sustainability, would love to hear that. And Luca, what about at Inter Milan? Are you focusing very heavily on that as an audience? Has it influenced the way that you see your efforts in the world?
For sure, we started 3 years ago on that. The fact we changed the logo and slightly also the color of the logo, because we did a lot of researches about what they want, the Gen Z, and then what they want, the future fans, the consumer for us. So we try to create something more simple, but something that speak again about our tradition. And on the other hand, is we try to create and find also partners that go in that direction. An example is Socios, so one of our partners that creates fan token. And with them, we see that the fan token, the Web 3.0, so the gamification, are a world that Gen Z generation spend most of the time. So sport have to go there. So they need to consume our game. They need to consume our activities through new platforms. So I can think about the fan token, or I can think about a web game. And with this new technology, we have opportunity to give access to experience. Because at the end of the day, we are our product is physical. Our product is an experience in the stadium, experience touching, seeing, taking pictures with the player. The fan token is the digital token that gives opportunity to people around the world to get closer, decide something. For example, the Sun fan token decided the color of the bus, take our playbooks every single day in a different place of the world, what it look like. So then people feel like closer to the club. People feel like part and consume the sport in a different way. So this is for sure, we already started on that. And then some partners have sport business, sport IP holder like us, to go and get closer to Gen Z in a quicker time.
Amazing. Luca, thank you so much for that. Very clear. All right, I want to sort of end on two notes. One is, I think I always love to provide some tangible advice to folks tuning in, and then hopefully we'll have a few minutes for some questions at the end as well. So, Luca, maybe start with you. Do you have any advice for folks who may be watching that may be interested or that are interested in either revamping, given that you've also just gone on this journey this year with your e-commerce platform? So advice for folks revamping their e-commerce strategies or pivoting their revenue streams to e-commerce. What are some words of advice for those folks?
Well, I just say something probably obvious, but for everyone, that want to revamp their business or to create a new business, for me, the number one rules is be meaningful with your community, be meaningful with your fans. So that is work always. Whatever you're gonna do after, if you have a new logo or you create a new e-commerce, it's gonna work. But to be meaningful, to understand who is your audience, for me is everything starting from there. Then of course after, you need to. I like to look outside my business, so I look outside sport. And you can learn from me, from my side, for example, you can learn what eBay is doing or other company on the digital business are doing to attract new consumer. So that's what we're doing right now. So that's no advice, but that's what if it was like 19 now, that's what I like to do.
I think that's sound advice. Be meaningful with what you do and say. Of course, I'll take that any day. Renata, given sort of of course you have a broader marketing focus, but you also have some history in social. I thought I'd ask you the same question. So advice for folks, but when it comes to their social media strategies, I was curious to know if you had any advice.
Yeah, I think absolutely knowing your customer and industry has been super helpful, especially working across several categories myself. Being in an always testing mindset, being clear about what you want to learn, and honestly just listening. I mean, so many of the campaigns that I've worked on have really just been like a lot of responses to like burning questions I think I've seen, and a lot of my content strategies have really catered to things that like add value to our audience's feed and the content they want to consume, really via like education, inspiration, or like participation. So I think, creating that shared value, absolutely. And I will actually take this advice, and I'm absolutely going to look outside my industry.
Yeah.
Really get more.
Fair enough. I think we could always probably all kind of open up the aperture a little bit and stop doing things so myopically from our day-to-days, right? And Ali, similarly to you, could you give us, from your vantage point, sort of, I know you deal with many, many brands in your day-to-day, a few themes brands can focus on and use today?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm going to repeat some of what Luca and Renata said, which is no bad thing. I think maybe three themes. I think the first is make the most of platform innovations. They're moving so quickly and there's always a new format or something to test. So I think sticking close to that innovation and being a first mover, testing and learning, understanding what works, like they're there to make social commerce like successful, and they're innovating to make that happen. And being a brand that can be involved in that, you can have first mover advantage. You also learn lots, which is great. So that. The second is the social part of social commerce is all around people, right? And those people are creators, so they're creating content on social platforms. So I think focusing on creators, who they are, they're your biggest advocate, but they're also your biggest risk, because they're very honest with their audiences about how they're finding interacting with your brand. So, and then that kind of alludes to the third one, which is like listen more than you speak. So like use it as a platform to like understand what's working, understand what's not working, and adapting the way that you approach campaigns, but also your business in a way that like is future-proofing your brand. And I think sticking close to creators when you're doing that allows you to have more of an open dialogue, and be able to kind of break down those barriers between your brand and your community, because that's what makes you, I think, ultimately successful. So those three things, which I do think are reiterating what Luca and Renato have said already.
I love the fact that we're packaging it into the power of three. Always good. I like it. All right, I have a few questions, and we have a few minutes left for our talk, so I'm going to go in, jumping into those questions from our audience. So our first question is eBay also looking at Gen Alpha? So the oldest are now teens and have been estimated to spend more than Gen Z online. It's a question from our audience. Gen Alpha.
Yes. So I would say yes. Absolutely. Always looking at, again, like the way the marketplace is changing, and also we're always like ready to adapt and invite again the challenge of like a new audience and new behaviors, which again like informs so much of the behavior that we see on our site, but also on our other channels. So I absolutely, I think we're super excited to like continue adapting and, meeting the challenge. And I think our social team does like a really wonderful job of that, like essentially to Ali's point, like embracing those different like channels and, working with different creators that we're seeing these new generations really engage with has been an exciting trend that's really shaped a lot of our social strategies alone. So absolutely.
Awesome. I might actually ask Ali the same question. Like, are you being confronted with that challenge yourself? The focus of Gen Alpha, and is that sort of like, it's just the name of the game, I suppose, to some degree. But I'm curious to know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And your question earlier was really interesting, like why the focus on Gen Z. Yes, they're the future. But I think one of the other reasons which like young audiences are so interesting for brands is they tend to move quicker than other audiences. So in a way, it's not Gen Z or Gen Alpha. It's actually where is the future and how can we keep up? So I remember when we first started looking at TikTok and we were analyzing the audience that was spending their time on TikTok, and it was super young, right? And it was dance crazes, and that's what it was. And now, 2 years later, it's one of the most successful platforms for a brand that we work with whose audience is in their 30s and 40s. It's actually performing better than TV and radio and other through-the-line channels. So I think we should absolutely focus on Gen Alpha, Gen Z, but it's around like, where are people spending their time? How can we reach them in an authentic way, which is exciting, regardless of what generation they might fit into?
Yeah, fair enough. Like it feels like there's, of course, the audience focus, then you've got your platform innovation, taking advantage of that as a changing landscape. But if I were to borrow something from what Luca said, not losing the meaning that you take towards it, right? I think, Luca, you also mentioned for Inter Milan, I thought that was an interesting anecdote. I'm not sure if many people know that, but Inter sort of started as a team that was based on international players being able to play for that team in Milan, right, Luca?
Yes, correct. That time there was another team that I can mention, AC Milan. And AC Milan was a team only for Italian citizens. So there was a group of gentlemen that want to play football, and they decided to create a new football team called International. So, that's for us is so the modern value, to be international, to be open, to be, broad for any kind of audience. And that's what we try to do right now. The question back to, for example, to football, of course, the Gen Z are the future. If we want to grow in the future, we want to be a global brand, we want to increase our revenue. You need to focus on that, you need to study them and change, all the marketing tools of the company for that focus, for that aim. On the other hand, like for us, for example, we also create experience only for, let me say, older people, older fans. So like, I think you mentioned, we call Inter Club, so they are aggregation momentum for most of them are older people. They go there, they watch the game, they buy merchandise, but they're not digital. They are less digital than the other generation, but they are important in any case because the future, the Gen Z represents the future buyers or the revenue in 10 years time maybe. and they can for sure, even right now, persuade the older people to move, to buy tickets, to buy merchandise. But on the other hand, you need to see also the actual momentum. So it's important to diversify your strategy and to try to offer experiences and products in a different way.
Awesome. All right, I guess just one maybe parting question for you. We talked about sustainability a bit and sort of like the needs, and you mentioned yourself, Renata, the sort of focus on, that the Gen Z audience, who are sort of a big audience in the eBay target group now, are prioritize sustainability as one of their decision-making, in their decision-making. I was curious to know, like, is there also, are you seeing that on your side as well, Luca? Is that a topic that comes up as for fans and for merchandising as well?
For sure, like sustainability, it's the future for any kind of company, in any kind of sport, in any kind of industries. In sport, for example, we are always asked, what does it mean to be sustainable as a football team? So we are thinking right now a different approach. We are a little bit advanced on developing sustainable merchandise. For example, with our partner Nike, since 2 years, our jersey, the football team jersey, is produced with recycle of plastic bottles. But then we want to step up. We want also to create also all our merchandise on sustainable and organic materials. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, we are working on carbon zero for the broadcast area. This football team has lots of elements linked, look like a TV. So we have a TV, we have a media company inside the football club. So that's there, for example, we are improving in terms of the classes, we're improving on server. We want to minimize the emission of carbon. So that's the second area. And the third area that we are thinking is a bigger project, but that's how to consume less plastic during the match game. That's another momentum. Nice. Unfortunately, like the consume of drink, water, any kind of fast food that the people consume during the game, before and after the game is a problem. So we have ideas. We are working with some specific company to develop something that can help. We can give something to the community. That's important.
Nice. Well, maybe glass bottles is not a good idea for fans in the stadium. All right. Well, look, I just wanted to say we've run out of time now. Thank you so much, all three of you, for sharing your time and your wisdom with us. Luca, I'm expecting an invitation to the next game so that I too can lose my voice. Renata, I'm going to hit you.
You're all invited.
Renata, I'm going to hit you up about those Pokemon cards, and Ali, I'm sure I'll see you very soon for a cup of coffee. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Folks, we've finished our panel. Now we're moving on to the next stage of our day. So in case, again, I feel a bit repetitive. So for folks who have been here the whole time, I'm going to reintroduce myself yet again. I'm Tobias. I'm the Business Development Director here at Dept. And welcome to Commerce Day for anyone who has just joined. So we're moving on to our next speaker of today, Maria. And Maria is an incredibly passionate speaker and digital enthusiast. As Director EMEA, Maria oversees media, advertising, and performance e-commerce at Gucci in 37 markets, building the strategic framework and direction for the region. Previously, Maria held the position of Global Head of Media and Advertising at Montblanc and Amazon as well. Maria, it's an absolute privilege to have you here today, and she'll be talking about delivering on the promise of digital. Maria, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you. I'm really looking forward to your chat today, Maria.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course. I'm going to actually hand over to you now, so it's your show.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right.
So, thank you. So today we're going to talk about delivering on the promise of digital. And this is a very vast topic, definitely. So I think depending on which industry you're working on, you would have different points, different agenda points at the moment on how to tackle to deliver on the promise of digital. And my key focus areas is going to be very much around my experience from my past work experience mostly, and also very much focused on the luxury industry. But in terms of background from my side, I am the director EMEA for media at Gucci for 37 markets. And prior to that, I was working at Montblanc in Hamburg and also at Amazon and Google. So I come more from the tech side of things and then went more and more into premium/luxury industry, because I'm a great believer in execution and also in setting up new processes. And there's still a lot to do in that industry, which is great. So quickly also then going through the next slide. So the key topic from my side is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that's super, super important from my side to highlight again and again, because in the end, especially as marketeers, we need to ensure that the audience is believing into our actions, that we are connecting to our audience and that we're being hyper authentic as a brand. And at the moment, there's a lot of buzz around the metaverse. There's a lot of buzz around different actions also. For example, NFT, collaborations, land being bought on Sandbox, etc. So question mark from my side is really on how much each brand should leverage metaverse for itself in terms of activity. And there's no simple answer, right? It really depends on what else you're currently facing in terms of digitalization, in terms of roadmap, and where you are today as a brand. And if you and the markets you operate in have a good and also very qualified audience on the metaverse, because I still see a very high share of 18 years old and even younger, especially in some of the games. So of course, this is also an area when exploring you should be having in mind. Then looking at a study from Accenture done last year, this is, I think, pretty shocking to see that the respondent base said that 77% of brands could disappear and no one would care. So this study is done in the US amongst Gen Z audience. And for me, this was really an urge also to confirm, to question also our actions as marketeers, especially also working for big brands, to see how relevant are we in terms of marketing communication, how well targeted is everything we're doing. And at the same time, also 58% of consumers think content from brands is irrelevant to them. So we need to keep this in mind when launching our targeting activation, when launching also a very personalized communication approach, that in whatever we're doing, we need to be to the consumer. A very much one-to-one communication and very personalized approach is expected from today's consumers. Now, looking at some other studies also from the luxury industry in this case, we are seeing that a lot of purchases, in this case 70%, are influenced by online interactions. Then at the same time also we see a strong increase in terms of spend coming from the UK, US and China. We see also Gen Z primarily choosing brands which have a very strong focus in terms of values, a very strong mission also communicated, and really play on their purpose. And interesting here also is to note that a lot of the consumers are, before purchasing, finding inspiration not anymore only on search engines. They also primarily go to multi-retailers. They go to also the likes of Amazon, for example, to find inspiration, to see also which product is going to be my final choice. And search trends, search activity is going away from search engines and moving more and more towards multi-e-retailers and marketplaces. So this is something also we need to keep in mind when we're looking at where the traffic comes from towards our website, where to focus on also in terms of digitalization, in terms of consumer behavior, to always know where our consumer is and also know how consumer trends are changing over time. Now, then again, what I always look at is also where does your brand stand versus competition. So you should always analyze, see and see at which time, which seasonality is a key focus for you as a brand, and also which combinations are being searched for. Is it your brand plus a certain category? Is it your brand plus a certain trend, a certain subculture, any values being connected to you as a brand? So it's super exciting to align your brand communication with the digital brand interest, which is being developed over time. Then another highlight I would like to place here is that in whatever we're doing, we need to ensure that we put the consumer in the center. And I know this is a message we have been communicating for quite some time now, but I think you can't repeat it often enough, because if you question yourself and you question how much consumers are really and truly part of your communication and are really in the heart of your communication, I think we can really do an even better job in going away from a very product-driven approach to say, this is the product, this is maybe a slow-moving good, this is a product which I would like to emphasize and highlight to the consumer, but then going into the direction of putting the consumer in the center and seeing which insights do I have based on brand demand, based on search demand, based on latest product queries, based on top sellers. And in that way, we need to adapt our marketing communication, and we need to be even better in highlighting products which are of value to the consumer. And as said again, use the right insights based on historical data in order to heavily customize our communicational approach. Now, why do we need to focus so much on consumer, on insights? So this slide here is to show again the high importance of prospects. So the audience, you as an audience being here, listening in today, is the overall audience I have as a possibility to reach today. Then in terms of prospects, this is the part of the audience which has already maybe heard about me, maybe heard about brands I'm talking about, etc. So you are already in touch with any of my previous activations, for example. So you are already closer to me as a person, as a brand. This, of course, applies to all of your brands in the same way, because everyone who has heard about you has heard about your brand and even been in touch with your brand previously is going to be much more likely to purchase in the future, and already gives you a bit of a trust benefit. So this is super important to highlight, because in the end, what we all want is to increase the rate from prospects to clients. And this is obviously also very tricky, because you need to be convincing, you need to have the right values in terms of communication, you need to be relevant, and you need to have a certain brand heat. So I can't emphasize enough to really, really focus on prospecting, to convert these prospects into clients, and by that also increase your share of first-party data audience, and by that also be able to have a very, very personalized communication. Next one is the famous pyramid of upper funnel, mid-funnel, lower funnel communication. So what I've seen a lot during especially COVID past 2 years is that many brands have been focusing a lot on the lower funnel. So it has been very much around conversion, conversion of products, but also about traffic being generated to the website. And it's super important to focus more on the upper funnel, to go more into branding tactics. And by that also, again, drive brand heat and brand demand, and ultimately brand equity. So in order to win against competition, it's crucial to always have the full funnel in mind, to ensure you're not neglecting any part of the funnel. And what has changed now specifically in the luxury industry, what I've seen is that there has been a bit of a shift, especially from luxury being a status item versus now also being a part of self-expression. So you want to differentiate yourself. You also look as luxury goods as investment assets rather than just, this is my property, this is something I've purchased for my bonus or whatsoever. It has really become an investment asset. And if you look at the value development of some of the key brands, you will also really see that especially investing into evergreen pieces is a very good idea. And now, especially customization, hyper-personalization are here hot topics, because this again also supports the strong aspects in terms of self-expression. Then also what I found very interesting, and this is very much also relatable to other industries, is that shoppers have really increased in terms of demand parameters. So from previously being more passive shoppers, maybe being inspired by a colleague, by a friend, etc., now we have a lot of brand critics. So there is a strong feedback culture being established, especially in Gen Z audience. So we always have to expect critics, and we always have to very closely also monitor brand desire and brand sentiment. Now, still, what is keeping most of us up at night, especially as marketeers, is the well-known non-transparent path to conversion. So if we would have this line out already, and we would know by now which share is contributing by how much to our conversion funnel, that would be a dream. Unfortunately, now due to the phasing out of cookies, we are investing more into marketing mix modeling in the industry, also into attribution modeling. So there are, of course, tactics in which you can try to shed some light into this discussion, but still the path to conversion is not completely lined out yet. And I can recommend, due to recent developments, to really focus on data-driven attribution. So to really move away from last click, focus on data-driven attribution. But I know that many organizations are not yet able to be set up in that way, and might not also have the right talent in-house. So it's crucial to already have this in mind, to look at the different touch points, their value, to look also onto how someone even got to that touch point. So why is someone going to the store? Have they seen an advertisement? Have they received a newsletter communication previously? So which really are the game changers in the path to conversion is something I would really highlight and also emphasize in terms of investment areas. Then the next point here is also the need to personalize the customer journeys. So in whatever we're doing and launching in terms of communication, we need to be very clear. Are we talking one-to-many, one-to-some, one-to-few, or one-to-one? So based on that, of course, we need to adapt our communication. We need to adapt our assets. We need to adapt the channel also in which we are launching. So obviously, if it's one-to-many, a very broad audience, you would start with a more introductory phase. One-to-some, already expecting that someone has heard about your brand, your company, you can be a bit more granular, and you can already have also some contextual data, some location-based data included. One-to-few, maybe someone who is currently close to your store, maybe someone who is already subscribed to the newsletter and knows about you. So you can be more specific. You should also look at which product potentially to integrate into the communicational approach to be relevant at that time. Remembering again, one of the first slides, we want to be relevant as a brand to the consumer. Then one-to-one communication, of course, also super important, especially in the premium segment. One-to-one communication is one of the key game changers in order to be relevant and to win also the hearts of the consumers, because it's a very high-priced product segment. And if you are spending big budgets, you of course also expect a very personalized communication. So we need to ensure that the user journey is personalized and is adapted also depending on the proximity of the user towards us as a brand. The next one I would like to highlight are the steps to purchase. So previously we have done some studies at Montblanc to look at the steps to purchase, to see also which steps are most relevant for Gen Y and Z when deciding on a certain product. And here highlighted are the key pillars along the journey. So you already see identification as a super, super high focus area. So you need to be able to identify yourself with the product, with the values of the brand. Inspirational piece, something evolving and developing more and more over the past years. So as a consumer, you want to be super inspired. You want to be maybe even brought out of your comfort zone. You want to be triggered and really want to buy into the brand desire and brand environment. Then personalization, also important, but not as important, for example, as product facts. So also, I think a good learning to ensure always product facts are being included in all of our communications. Purchase options. So clients want to have options more and more these days and expect also for us as a brand to be able to deliver on these options. Then experience. So I think often it's being forgotten to have a good after sales service to really go end to end in terms of sales experience. So this is also a key potential game changer in the steps to purchase. So based on these insights, what do we have in terms of resulting action? So my highlights here and key summary for you to potentially embrace is number one, to define your purpose. Define your purpose as a brand. Who are you wanting to talk to? What is your mission as a brand? What are your values? So only if you have identified that and also clearly streamlined across the organization, you will be able to create impact. Globalization. So in many cases, many of us are looking after several markets. So some might have Europe, EMEA, worldwide functions, and it's important to have a global approach, meaning a global strategy with local execution and local flavor. So by that also, for me, it's a key differentiation factor. And you can also be audacious. One current buzzword I think you hear a lot at the moment is to be audacious, to also dare to be different. Then working in themes. So from my experience, it helps also for the consumer to understand your campaigns even better if you work in themes, if you establish also strong storytelling, and by that also be very authentic. Now, quickly summarizing the digitalization roadmap on what I can recommend to you to look at the current state of digitalization, to also look at current hurdles and current key challenges. So there is a high share in terms of dependency on paid media, which for me is one of the key areas to potentially reduce. We have seen in many organizations a very high focus in terms of, as said, lower funnel, by that also meaning search. So this is an area you can potentially reduce to have a healthy setup as an organization. Then if you are seeing a decrease in brand demand, you also need to look at what you have in your pocket in order to be able to increase brand demand and which tactics to launch. Limited omnichannel thinking is still very common across organizations. So it's important to have a good contactability rate to ensure also offline sales are being brought into the equation when you talk about digital changes and digitalization. And then also invest in higher data scientists, invest into workforce which is or which has inherited, let's say, and is really living a good combination in terms of lifestyle, marketing, and also data and insights. I think that's a super powerful combination, which is still very rare today. Launch of attribution modeling, predictive buying, maybe even click and collect. So to really ensure that there is a strong omnichannel thinking. Lack of premiumness. So we don't need to be everywhere, but where we are, we need to be very precisely and have a really customized approach as shown before, instead of a one-size-fits-all approach. In order to understand our customer, there are certain tactics also to be launched. It's important to capture insights, to also have a good always-on journey between different departments, such as CRM. And we need to also ensure that the budgets we have available are matching the overall targets of the organization. Then from visibility to desirability, it's important to avoid overexposure, to remain super premium, to remain relevant, and adapt our assets and also messaging accordingly. So do's and don'ts on the digital roadmap for me is to capture insights, to deploy a brand theme, and to join forces capture insights, track also brand affinity, the evolution of that, analyze your client behavior, invest into data, deploy a brand theme, so work in themes, create impact, be also differentiated towards competition, and ensure also your current values are connected and for you to be an agent of change within the organization. To join forces, as said, super important to ensure you can remain relevant across local markets, even though you might be a global organization, and ensure also that your sales and marketing teams are speaking the same language, especially also for the benefit of your retail. So this is the integrated approach I have developed across these pillars. It's super important to, on one side, understand your audience, drive by that customer experience, develop capability. I think also if you have that in-house, it's a smart move to be set up for success in the future. By that also drive demand, drive brand demand, also targeting the right customers, leverage the different channels you have available and always measure and optimize. And by that also drive long-term relationships. So through your CRM audiences, through a good retention rate and a very relevant communication, that's for me the key strategic points. Also define a prioritization strategy. So you can't do everything at the same time, obviously. You need to see what you can enable as an always-on approach and what you can enable as a sort of ad hoc strategic move. So what exactly do you want to do as an always-on and what do you want to do more as a tactical activation? Then another recommendation from my side is to develop a go-to-market guidebook. So to also see, are we speaking the same language for our teams, for our markets? Are we sure that we have the same planning KPIs, the same key message we are communicating internally? And also, do we have the right channels activated? Then again, I know it's always a tough discussion to change the mindset internally of the organization, to be able to really drive change. And here again, I want us to really focus on education internally, ensure no one is lost along the way, ensure teams are also set up for success and are being educated, upskilled and reskilled in order to handle the challenges of digitalization and of digital trends. Then really ensure that the strategy internally is aligned. And I think here often there are discussions where we might notice that not everyone is on the same page. So it's super important to align on the priorities and, as said, also very much align on the planning KPIs and on the target state. So by changing that, by changing the mindset internally, you can really move from a reactive to a proactive organizational setup. You will be able to scale very fast. And once new processes are implemented and teams are being brought on board, I think you have a good way also to be set up for success and to really also tackle the digital challenges currently within our roadmap, currently ahead of us. And in the end, also due to that, we need to be able to know our consumer. We need to be able to very much speak the same language. By that, also launch dashboards and ensure we're bringing as many people on board as possible. Then again, final word from my side, if you can't measure it, it does not exist. For me, as I've been brought up, so to say, in the digital first and e-commerce environment, it's something I always preach because it's super important to argument based on numbers, not based on taste. That makes life a lot easier. And if you implement this approach across your organization, challenge also business cases, challenge requests also from different teams, it does, of course, help. So let's try to embrace that in the organization as well. That's it from my side. Thank you so much for your attention. It's been a pleasure.
Maria, thank you so much for that advice. I feel like you could probably take this, publish it, and we'll be good to go from there. All right, I just listening to you talk about this, I think there are probably some incredibly well-formed thoughts just from your experience over the course of time at Montblanc and Gucci itself. I guess my question is, for your roadmap to digitalization, do you feel, in your experience and knowing how organizations in the luxury space work, do you feel it's more, is it an evolution of the current state of affairs, or do you think it's revolution?
So first, I think there has been a strong evolution constantly due to the changing consumer behavior, for example. Now, in many instances, and also due to the generation shift, I think it's more a revolution. It's a revolution because we're really being pushed to develop, to change, to also adapt even quicker than previously. And often organizations are not set up in a way to react that quickly. So the agility really needs to increase. And I would say it's a strong revolution, and you're lucky if you work for a brand which also is living this approach, right? And able to deliver fast according to consumer needs.
And I suppose willing to embrace it, right? Because change is tough in an organization. I'd imagine you experienced that yourself as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I guess I have another question. I'm probably going from a macro question to a bit of a micro question, but your comment on last click, I thought was an interesting one, and probably one that anyone in the industry is like, huh, okay, what does that actually mean? Because I think you mentioned it yourself. It's to do with organizational readiness, right? And readiness in the form of having the right people and processes to deal with that change. And I guess, like, what comes first? I suppose people or process. I'm curious to know what you think about that.
Yeah, so it's, I think, the education need first to know exactly what do we mean by last click attribution, right? So
fair enough.
To raise the awareness firstly, and then secondly, really ensure education for data-driven attribution. It's not something we can yet fulfill for all markets, for all channels, because each channel is so different. So at the same time, also, that's why I said invest in people, invest in data scientists, marketing analysts, etc., and really ensure that especially marketing teams are set up for success in a way. So it's work in progress, the change towards data-driven attribution. But then also it's mostly looking at online to online. And we now need to ensure as a next step that we are also integrating all offline sales into this attribution model.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, very clear. I also have a question from the audience, actually. I'm reading it here. It seems like sustainability is certainly a topic for today. So what is the best way to launch a sustainable clothing line of a brand under a different name so that people still make the link to the parent company is the question. Bit of a random
That's a fairly big question.
Yeah, I know.
If I would have the answer to that, I would have launched a brand, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
fair enough.
I think if you start from consumer insights, no matter I think your brand, if you start from scratch or if you want to launch under a different brand's umbrella, I think in that case it might also be smart to start it your own, right, with the right parameters, the right insights in markets which are already ready to embrace that, because it's also going to be connected to a higher price point, right? So it's something you might not see immediately, but you know that the production line has been super sustainable, etc. Right, good materials have been used. So that's of course super beneficial, and also I would say a target for many. But if you again invest into consumer insights first before launching, so you know exactly the potential price points, you know the affinity connected to these type of products and consumers, so you also know which brands you can include in your targeting, for example, you know which channels are also the right ones, so you can really do a lot if you're maybe even going to launch this digitally only for now, right? And then you can work with some pop-ups or maybe even multi-retailers to see which other brands match these values and where do you want to be positioned. But very big question.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Wise words, though, given the question at hand. I was curious to know, also just for folks to get a sort of sense of course, you started at Gucci relatively recently. I'm curious to know, like, you're on the path of digital transformation now. What can we expect from Gucci and you in your next steps?
So here today, I'm speaking on my own behalf, right? So
Yes.
I'm going to say what you can really also expect from me in terms of next steps, in terms of agenda.
Yeah.
It's a big focus in terms of data and insights, definitely. It's a big focus to also revisit our tech stack, to see also which tools are going to be relevant, which tools processes can be optimized. That's also super important. And then lastly, again, consumer insights, as I said before. So for example, looking at first-party data audiences, launching surveys, but also combine that with second and third-party data audience. So my credo is always less but better and more qualified, and invest into data and insights as much as possible.
Awesome. All right. I think that's amazing. And Maria, also just thank you so much for all your wisdom and your time. I think it's been a great talk, and it's been a great privilege to have a chat with you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
You take care, okay?
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. I guess we're on to the next steps of the program for today. And again, I feel incredibly repetitive, but for the sake of those folks who have recently joined our chat, I'm Tobias. I'm the Business Development Director here at Dept. I'm the MC for today, Commerce Day. And we have been having lots of chats and panels on the topic of commerce. And for our next chat, we actually have Oliver and Jan. And this talk is actually a little bit different from the ones that we've had, because both Oliver and Jan had to travel today. And I believe they might be on a flight as we speak. So of course they can't join digitally. But we've recorded their conversation about the road to the metaverse last week. And I want to share a little bit about the speakers before we begin. So Oliver Lange works for H&M, where he established the H&M Lab in Germany, a very small innovation cell based in Berlin. The H&M Lab Germany develops projects and services to be quickly tested in the market and are often co-created with startups and partners. Headlines are sustainability and digitalization as two of the main influences for the transformation. In 2021, the H&M Lab Germany reinvented itself to become the brand H&M Beyond, to sharpen its approach as a public-facing open innovation unit that also creates meaningful interactions and engagements beyond fashion retail, but keeping the creation work at its core. Jan Goedkoen is Director of Web3 and partner here at Dept, and also a colleague of mine. He has been working at the intersection of branding, commerce, culture, and technology for the last 15 years. And in 2021, he founded our very own Meta Festival, and since then has been helping brands and retailers like H&M, About You, or Vogue Business take their steps into the metaverse. And of course, Jan and Oliver aren't here today, but if you do have questions that come up during the talk, please do ask him in the chat, and we'll make sure to forward them to Oliver and Jan so that they may reach out to you to answer those questions for you. For now, enjoy the conversation about the road to metaverse commerce.
Hi everybody, my name is Jan. I'm Director Web3 and partner at Dept, and I'm really excited about our session today. We are here to talk about the road to metaverse commerce. Wow, that's an ambitious goal, so I'm more than happy that I have no other than Olli Lange from H&M Beyond with me today. Hi Olli.
Hey.
We are collaborating for almost a year now on the showroom/metaverse project. It's really good to have you here today. How are you doing? And would you please introduce yourself to our audience?
I will. Thank you, Jan, for inviting me. I'm beyond happy and proud all of the time. I have the best job in the world, I guess. And it's a pleasure to explain our roadmap to you guys, which I would not say is the roadmap to metaverse e-commerce, but at least we started and we are on the street. I'm responsible for a tiny little team called H&M Beyond, which is an open innovation retail lab. Based in Berlin, and we have the purest pleasure looking into future products, services, experiences that may be relevant for our customers. And the good thing is we do that in our open innovation approach. So we always find and want and need a partner who's co-creating with us. In that case, great that we met you guys. It doesn't feel like nearly a year. It feels like seconds, to be honest, which is great.
Thank you for being here today. And yeah, we will discuss our metaverse case in just a second. But before we start, I would like to give you a little bit of an introduction to the topic. So in my role as Director of Web3, I'm talking to many clients right now, and I find myself in diverse strategic discussions. So, you know, where is the whole thing heading? Which platforms are the best to explore? What are the most successful use cases at the moment? And when will it finally reach mass adoption? And so on. But the most important question is, in my opinion, why should I start a metaverse journey? And this is probably the best question to start your journey with. Because it's easy to answer. It's an ever-recurring crossroads moment in digital history. And I would like to give you 3 lessons from the past now. So, in the 90s, lots of companies said, we don't need a website because people learn about us through TV and print. And in the 2000s, a lot said, we don't need an e-commerce strategy because people will buy in-store. And in the 2010s, way too many thought, we don't need a mobile website or app. People buy everything on desktop. And today, in the early 2020s, I think people still haven't learned from the past and say, we don't need a metaverse or NFT strategy. It's just a hype and our existing channels work just fine. But we all know where this probably leads to, right? Others will get their slice of the metaverse cake. You probably agree now that it could make sense to move into this space, but what awaits brands and what is going to change over the next years? That's, of course, really hard to project, simply because we are entering a whole decade of disruption. And there's this complex mesh of emerging technologies that is about to turn all our lives upside down. Metaverse, gaming, virtual and augmented experiences on the one side, and NFTs, crypto and DeFi on the other hand. And they are all interconnected. And this will impact marketing, branding, and of course e-commerce. So we cannot predict the exact future at this super early stage, but we see 3 paradigm shifts happening sooner rather than later. So gradually, the architecture of websites, apps and online shops will also shift from flat to immersive as well. And this will create entirely new ways of experiencing products, telling stories and engaging users. On top of this, we will develop a digital identity alongside our physical one. With the rise of social media, we all have been investing heavily in our digital display already. But in the next decade, we will also spend a significant amount of money on this avatar economy, which is already one of the most promising fields of metaverse commerce. And we're already seeing a tendency to turn stores from points of sale into points of experience. With the use of Web3 tech like AR, NFTs or phygital items, brands can bridge the gap between the real and the virtual world. As you see, there are lots of opportunities in the metaverse, and we just scratched the surface of what's really possible. But what's in it for you as a brand or retailer? Important question. We see 3 strategic fields. Of course, you can reach new customers, and in particular, Gen Z and Alpha are at risk of being completely lost without proper channel activation. And with all these new immersive experiences and tactics like token-gated commerce, you can engage with customers in unseen ways. All of these new techs, platforms and paradigms bring the opportunity to create new categories, and you can become the category leader of this. And if you summarize all of this, you can make your brand and business future-proof. And this is definitely what all of you want. So, what do I want you to keep from my little brainwashing session? Number 1, bad news. There's a huge digital revolution coming your way, and it has already started. But there are also good news, because it's still super early and you can make use of this. There are many blue oceans you can capture. You better be up and running, have learned your lessons when the mass adoption hits. So start your journey ASAP. And you're not alone, because there are smart brands like Nike, Gucci, and of course H&M that are your pathfinders. They take phased approaches, they move super fast, they experiment, they learn, and they are open for collaboration. And they like to talk about their achievements. And that's really great, because we can hear from Ollie himself how he's spearheading innovation at one of the biggest fashion brands in the world. So Ollie, would you please take over for a minute and tell us a bit about your metaverse journey?
You said it, fast-paced, quick, learn, adapt. That's exactly how our mentality is, I would say, in the team. So we try to break down this beauty of what is on the table. We try to break it down to very core use cases and very dedicated stakeholder groups in the beginning to get our foot on the street. We partnered with you guys because we had this one thought. We had this thought of a digital showroom. So what would the digital showroom be? It's the beauty spot where H&M welcomes press, media, influencers and stylists and shows the latest collection. So that's a very important spot for us. Happily, we partnered up with you guys because you helped us a lot in creating that first case. And the first case was we built a virtual showroom for press, media, and influencers. What I think is smart when you do things like that is already having a roadmap and iterations in mind. We have a rollout plan We started B2B in a creation that took 12 weeks. It was not in a hurry, but it was very speedy. And the virtual showroom was a totally new experience. I can only say that. Unique, immersive experience, showcasing a collection in a new way, walking around an environment, a gamified experience even, getting background information from designers, interviews on screens, listening in, downloading the assets you need. So just making it way more beautiful than just scrolling on a flat screen, as we have heard from you today. And I'd like to show you. Yeah, and what we were aiming for, I would say, plays in three fields. We have the main stakeholder group, right? Press, media, influencers. How do they feel about it? Do we answer their demand? So that was the first check we were after. Second is H&M internally, H&M global teams. We always need them in information. You can't go without internal partners. So whom do we need to convince with the results in order also to create the new cases, right? And the third is Gen Z. And Gen Z is on that table not because they are stakeholders from a showroom perspective, but because they are the main stakeholders for us to learn how do we want to expose our brand in the virtual world and what offers are seen to be relevant. And I have a pleasure sharing it with you, Jan, and also with the team here watching, starting with that great quotation from Vogue as one of our first tier partner in media. They were welcoming that space, were really happy about the creation. They said it's absolutely worth it, crazy good detail, great way of garment displays and great background information on the collection. So very good, main goal for that creation particularly. Second is the internal discussion really helped on that roadmap because H&M globally was so proud on that development that they even took it and talked about it outside H&M with pride, I would say. And third is opening that space for some hundreds of Gen Z was important to us. Even if the campaign was down and the garments were sold, we just felt like let's invite them to that space, expose our space to them and listen in. How do they feel, what do they see and what do they wish for? And we got some very good tendencies already then. That they love being in these worlds. They love to have more, so there's a hunger for more experiences that we could create, but it needs to be catered to their needs and what they wish for. So this is what we learned.
Did they express exactly what they want from you in the future? I'm really excited about this. So.
Yeah, they did. So we also talked to them. We saw that for the first time very clearly, digital and NFT was on the list. It was deprioritized, but it was clearly to be seen on that list. So we can see that trend coming, as you told us. But we also heard that they expect fashion to be experience first. So that was where we are on the track naturally with the virtual showroom, I would say. But then also the whole engagement part. So being engaged, meeting each other, having like the social life there. To sum up, we have successfully implemented that virtual showroom. So it's out there, it's in the hands of press, and they take it and they activate it whenever they think it makes sense, B2B. On our end, we take the Gen Z feedback and we run with it. So that's basically the thing that I can look into together with you. And maybe you're excited. I am when I'm showing this to you. Celestial Spaces, the first concert in the H&M virtual universe. We have evaluated, we have pitched. We have internally found the right partners to go with, sitting in the field of music, culture, and marketing. And the artist we decided for is BGYO, P-pop band, as you would call it maybe. And we felt like if we offer these people the option to be exposed in a virtual concert, we would learn heavily. So this is what we did, and you can. It's just like happening some weeks ago, and I can show you some results or how it looks like.
When I see you walking, when I see you walk, let me see. When I see you walking, when I see you walk, let me. When I see you walking, when I see you walk, let me. When I see you walking, when I see you walk. I don't know what kind of spell you've been putting on me.
Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. It's even hot at the moment because we have done it some days ago.
Sizzling, sizzling hot.
It's sizzling hot, and I could do my field study with my 10-year-old, and she was enjoying that space. She was in there with her smartphone, strolling around, flying around, taking pictures, creating memorable moments. She even shared it with their friends.
I'm excited, of course, about the results because you shifted from B2B to B2C so fast. How did this affect your goals?
We had Gen Z very prominently on the table here. So we really thought like, okay, they are now the users, they are now the customers. So it needs to cater their needs and their demands, so we need to listen closely to them, not to press media and influencers anymore. But press and media was still very important to us because we wished for a little buzz that is created and that also pushes a little bit gently from the outside, like, okay, H&M, this is cool, you should do things like that.
I don't want to spoil too much, but I think you managed that quite well.
Okay, if you say it, then I believe it. And the third is, as you have learned already, H&M Group, so internal stakeholder management, evaluate internally and get the new sponsors on board, right? So we managed to be covered in CNN Philippines, which is just great. Very, very nice moment seeing this in live TV.
Maybe a live goal for some here.
Yeah, maybe, but great that you celebrated like that. Social media we took over for a time, so the whole concert, the whole crowd, BGYO, the band, it was just trending heavily. I think it was like a big amount of communication that went global from a very core use case we had, right?
And isn't that really the sweet thing about connecting with the community, right? And making them, creating the buzz for you. So I think that's really a sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
That you found out there.
I agree. I'm not a marketing expert, but this is, at least I feel very satisfied because it comes from the people and not from us, right? But then also from many, many thousand who joined the concert, we got some thousand and we invited them to a survey and we got such good feedbacks on qualitatively level. So thousands of people were writing nice sentences, but on the quantitative side, we learned that the NPS is crazy high. So they want to just have more of it and they would suggest it to their friends. The experience rating they gave us was crazy high, so we expected good results, but not like something going through the roof. But what was kind of really motivating was the ask and the demand for products. So it was, I want to buy physical merchandising of that band of H&M. I want to buy digital merchandise. I want to buy phygital, whatever. It's just a door opener to next use cases, I would say, right? But we heard clearly from the stakeholders. It was not just we think it is like that, we listen to them and we adapt. This is how the journey always looked like. And so what you might expect now on that journey, if we zoom out a little bit and we are close to finish, we have tested like the first case with the showroom where we showcase the collection in a new and immersive way. Check on that, B2B, is alive and is progressing. We have engaged a local community around an artist and we celebrated music and culture together in a time and space and we got so good feedback, but we also heard that there's more that they ask for, right, as I said. So you will see a third case that will come up or may come up from us will be connected to monetization and looking for, okay, what do people want to buy and how are the mechanics? So this you will maybe see. And another thing that my heart beats for is purely co-created on-demand collections. So co-creating pieces together with creators, artists, or customers in the virtual world. And if there's a need for it, then we start producing as a brand. It's just a nice way of funneling down creativity and producing in a very sustainable way. And what goes beyond that? Let's see, next time maybe, but this is so far what we have done.
It's just such a nice representation of how you can use the momentum, right? Find the right partners, the right people internally, and externally to start this journey with. Iterate, learn, adapt, right? And then, power through like you do always. Impressive to hear, I think. I can imagine that everybody that was listening today is also blown away, right? And so what would your advice be for all the listeners today? If they want to start their own journey, if they want to innovate, if they want to get in contact with new target groups, engage them, where should they start? What should they do?
My reflection on that question is more about how we do things than what we do. One might be that you need to have internal allies. You need to know that the team internally that pushes you with the right energy and the right mindset. Sometimes it's not dedicated to the roles they have. It's sometimes just like the people and their mindset. One thing. It helps on the financial side as well. So if you have people on your side and they have a shared interest, then you can finance projects like this. Second is on a very human level, try to risk something. So follow your gut feeling, take responsibility, take ownership, calculated risks, I would say, but we never go without. So we need to take a first step, a bold step into a direction. Third is be clear on what the use case is, what the goals are, and what you want to measure. You need to know this before you do something. It makes things way more easy. And for the fourth, maybe just be prepared for obstacles, influences from the side, unstable grounds, things that impact your timeline, your goals, and your product. So be very agile in such an unstable environment. I think this is also a matter of how times are, right? And one thing comes up now, which is very important, and this we also see everywhere in all projects. Find a partner who's really credible and who kind of takes you by the hand and co-create solutions together with you. And in that journey, it was just great to have Dept on our side early in the beginning.
Thank you. Very, very good to hear that. Thanks everybody for listening today. I hope you enjoyed our session. Unfortunately, we can't be here today to answer all your questions, but we're super happy if you connect us via LinkedIn. Just scan the QR codes and connect with us. And we will definitely be happy to chat with you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So thanks for listening. Have a good one.
Happy day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jan.
All right, folks, that was it. A very big thank you to all our speakers. Those 2 hours flew by, I think. I can't believe we're already at the end. It's been really great, I think, to hear from all you experts on commerce, and also for all you speakers, my deepest gratitude for sharing your wisdom with us and your time. For you folks dialing in, we hope you're able to take away some key learnings for yourself and for your organization. If you want to stay tuned for updates, make sure you follow Dept Agency on social media. And if you do have any questions, please also reach out to me on LinkedIn. Don't be a stranger. Thank you, and goodbye. Have a lovely day.
les honneurs descendent sur la ville. Qu'est-ce qui viole les filles ce soir dans les parkings? Qui met le feu au building, c'est toujours les honneurs. Alors, c'est la panique sur les boulevards quand on arrive en ville. Quand on arrive en ville, tout le monde change de trottoir. On n'a pas l'air viril, mais on fait peur à voir. Les gars qui se maquillent, ça fait rire les passants. Quand ils voient du sang sur nos lames de rinçoir, ça fait comme un éclair dans le brouillard. Quand on arrive en tout ce qu'on veut c'est être heureux avant d'être vieux. On n'a pas le temps d'attendre d'avoir 30 ans. Tout ce qu'on veut c'est être heureux avant d'être vieux. On prend tout ce qu'on peut prendre en attendant. Quand on arrive en ville. Quand on arrive en ville, on arrive de nulle part. Vie sans domicile, on dort dans les hangars. Journée tranquille, on passe incognito. Le soir on change de peau et on frappe au hasard. Alors, préparez-vous pour la bagarre. Quand on arrive en... Quand la ville souterraine est plongée